If you were to come to me and tell me everything that's going on with you, because I'm not emotionally attached to anything that's going on in your life, I can see it clearly. I can see it objectively, and I can help you see where the patterns are. For myself, I can't do that for myself, right? And so why having a coach or why having somebody in your life help you get through that stuff is so important is because the hardest person for me to see is myself.
Would you like to share any like specific life-changing story that you can think, you would like to share to the listeners, and that can you think that stands out in your memory, like it's still fresh? So, Quincy, first of all, welcome to Zest to Live. I'm really excited to have you today on the show. How are you feeling?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So, Quincy, we're going to talk about so many things today, about so many different topics and motivation, empowerment, trauma, getting over limiting beliefs. I think we're going to get into many things. But, everybody starts somewhere. And whenever I think about that place, for me, it's always the foundation where it's kept. That is the childhood, you know.
Hmm.
And for somebody, either one has a really traumatic one or one has a really good childhood, like a great upbringing. There is no
Hmm.
normal upbringing. I don't consider
No.
anything normal. Either it's good or it's just on the traumatic side. There's nothing like a normal childhood. I never see it. So what was your childhood like, and how did your journey got you what you are today? So I'm trying to understand what was your childhood like, and where did this whole journey began really?
I actually think I had a really great childhood. I grew up in an alcoholic home. My dad he was not a violent alcoholic. He wasn't even really a mean alcoholic, but he was an alcoholic nonetheless. And I think that normal is a setting on the dryer or a setting on something, but it's not what life looks like. And I think that everybody's childhood has some form of trauma attached to it. Because I believe the trauma, especially from childhood, is kind of what forms us as people. And, I grew up in a house where there was a lot of laughter and there was a lot of parties, but there was also a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And there was a lot of expectation and there was a lot of broken promises. And my parents ended up getting divorced when I was, I think, 16. And that changed our life. We went from living in one area to a different area. So, for kids, that's super traumatic. So, my childhood was, for all intents and purposes, really great in a lot of ways. But it did not come without its problems, and it did not come without the damages it left in my life.
So, as you growed up, and came into the time of teenage and puberty, and that's a time, we start to, like, our body grows, we are trying to get into that adult
Oh
zone.
yeah.
Maybe we start dating in the Western culture, so
Hmm.
it's that, your first prom and all of those great, great things that you think, starts happening. It's a really exciting time, I feel, in someone's life. So how was
Hmm.
that time like that? And once you came out of the college, like, what was your journey like, and what brought you here, what you are today? That's what I'm trying to understand.
So, because my parents got divorced during that time, during the time when I was going through puberty, when I was changing, when my body was changing, all of that stuff, there wasn't a lot of attention to me about what was going on with me, right? So, because I felt totally alone. I felt totally confused. I didn't have anywhere to ask questions. My parents were so busy fighting and trying to figure out if my dad was going to get sober and trying to figure out what they were doing, that they didn't have a lot of time to communicate with me or with my sister and my brother. And so I did a lot of stuff figuring it out on my own. And I made a lot of mistakes. I did a lot of things that if my child would have done, I probably would have flipped out about. But that's when I started drinking. That's when I started experimenting with sex. That was when I started using anger and violence as a weapon in my life because I didn't have any other idea on how to communicate. I didn't know how to talk about what was going on with me. And drugs and alcohol actually made it really easy for me to just check out and not feel anything.
Escape.
And
Escape.
yes, absolutely. And it eventually became my solution to everything, right? I didn't know how to be connected. I didn't know how to deal with the trauma. I didn't know how to deal with the shame. So I just disconnected. And drugs and alcohol made that easy for me to do. And, I didn't graduate from high school. I dropped out of high school 3 times because apparently I couldn't get it right the first time. And I didn't end up going to college like right after school. I went to college much later in life, but I didn't go to college right out of high school. Like I wanted to get a job. I wanted to get away from my family. Like I just wanted to go live my life, and find my place in the world. And so I did. And it was great because I had a lot of really great jobs. I had a lot of really horrible jobs. But in all of that turmoil, there was a lot of damage, and there were a lot of mistakes, and there were a lot of things that led me to where I am right now, which I'm super grateful for, but at the time were super, super painful.
So, you started doing coaching after a
Yes.
long time. Not so early did you started coaching, but you did.
Hmm.
So, what brought you to coaching? Someone who goes through a lot of trauma, a lot of those kind of things, goes to coaching herself rather than
Hmm.
starting a coaching of her own. So that is a big decision, because when you start coaching, that means you can help others
Hmm.
overcoming their fears, their beliefs, and limiting beliefs, and making them powerful, making them courageous, and especially women, who are
Hmm.
oppressed in the society. I think we talked about this before, so it's in all cultures. Humans are trying to oppress. So in that
Hmm.
sense, when you came and you saw that's how your friends, or maybe females specifically, are being suppressed, and males were also dominated by their own fears, like to be competitive, to be number one in the corporate world.
hmm
There's so many, during that time. So what brought you to coaching, and how did that thing started out, basically?
So, so being an alcoholic and a drug addict myself, like part of the
Mm,
reason people go to addiction is because whether it's addicted to food, addicted to drugs and alcohol, shopping, sex, whatever it is because they're escaping this inability to deal with pain in their own life, right? And um and I couldn't deal with pain. Like I could not deal with pain, and that's why I went to those things. And so when drugs and alcohol started causing more pain in my life than it was solving problems, I ended up getting sober, right? And because I got sober and I no longer had this outside thing to make me feel better, I had to learn how to feel better, right? I had to learn how to deal with that pain. And for a long time, I couldn't. For a long time, I just would do what we call geographics, which I would just move from one place to the next, whether it was social groups, whether it was physical location, whatever it was, so that when all of a sudden there'd be all these problems in this social group, I just moved to a different social group, like get rid of them and start all over, right? If it was a job and it was going badly, I just quit that job and go get another job, right? Instead of dealing with what was causing the pain, what was causing the turmoil or the
so you
friction
were
in my life.
avoiding
I
it
didn't.
so you were
Oh,
avoiding
yeah.
it in that sense?
I was still avoiding it, right? Until it became so unbearable in my life that I could not continue to avoid it. Like I got to a point where, and I was talking about this the other day, I got to a point where, either getting drunk and doing drugs was my option or suicide. Like those were the two places that I had gotten to. And I have since then, I mean, and there have been plenty of times in my life when I've been suicidal, right? And what I've come to realize is that suicide is really just my ego's way of saying I'm out of answers, right? And, this is the only answer I have for you because my ego thinks it needs to come up with all the answers, right? And if I can look at it that way, then I can see that was actually when my life turned, and I learned how to do this from somebody else. And I actually got coaching from somebody else. And that person taught me how to deal with conflict, how to communicate, how to resolve what's going on with me, and to learn from my feelings, to learn from, my behaviors, so that I could change the way that I behaved, so I could change the way that I think. And that took a lot of work, but I loved doing the work because every time I would learn something, and every time I would do something in a new way, I would experience this.
Welcome to Luvo. Introducing live sessions for meditation, yoga, healthy eating, and gratitude. Tune in with our meditation music for health, happiness, and success. This all-in-one app has smartwatch integration to check your health vitals. More than just an app, it's a lifestyle. Download our free app and start living your best life.
Was tied up in knots and everything was tense and everything felt bad on the inside. But once this person taught me how to do things in a different way and how to resolve that stuff, all of a sudden it felt like those knots were letting go, were loosening up, and that was amazing, right? Like that was amazing. And so I became intoxicated by learning how to get free, how to be different, how to resolve stuff. And in that process, I started teaching other people what was being taught to me. And as a result, I ended up learning more than just by learning on myself. Right. So that was how I got to coaching. Literally was I went to somebody as a coach and I went, you know what? I
So
really want to show other people.
your transformation became transformation for many. That's if I have to
Absolutely.
sum sum it
Absolutely.
up.
If you had to sum it up in one sentence, absolutely. But I think that that's true for a lot of people. Not everyone, but a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people that go to school to be a therapist that have had absolutely zero you know, transformation of themselves, but they have all the information. They know what to say, they know how to spot all the treatments, all that kind of stuff. But when you're actually working with somebody who relates to and understands where you're at, it's a lot deeper of a
Not
connection.
just in
And
the books, but in practically,
yeah,
not just in the
in
books, in the
practical life.
practical.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what coaching is all about is, I've had a tremendous life and I've had a lot of experiences and I've learned a lot of lessons, but I've also learned how to transmit that, how to let people know how to do things different, how to help them spot what's working and what's not working. Like I don't believe in good and bad. I just believe in what works and what doesn't. And when we can
Right,
identify what
right.
doesn't work, then we can find something
That's
that does.
really positive way to think that. And I feel I'm going to talk about youngsters, because I think there's so
Mm-hmm.
many youngsters who are, I mean, I have to say this, in history, no time was easy to live in, actually. But today is even harder because the population is so much, and there is
Yeah.
so much competition between, study, then, college. Everywhere it seems like there is a race going on, and you have to be number one. If you don't be
Yeah.
number one, you're out of the race. You don't nobody considers you. Women
Yeah.
don't consider you. Man doesn't consider woman who's not beautiful, who's not
Nothing.
that.
Yeah,
So
dogs
people
won't
have
consider you. Yeah.
so the criteria has been made of the society. This is the menu card, and you have to fit in the menu to be chosen.
Sorry, my little dog thought I was attacking her. So funny. Sorry.
so you have to
Yes.
so you have to be
Yeah.
chosen. And why this? How can somebody come out of that mentality of race, because that has been killing us, right, in here.
Mm-hmm.
It has been
Yeah.
suppressing our potential. We have so much potential, Quincy, so
Yes.
much potential. I feel that has been suppressed, and we could
Mm-hmm.
use so much of that potential, but we suppress it. So what is
Yes.
that, if I have to say, techniques for the youngsters who are going through a very depressive period, especially because you were a youngster at that time, you got into
Mm-hmm.
alcohol, and I know so many youngsters in the United States are into alcohol and drugs
Oh
because
yeah.
they don't know, and the reason they are in, it's because they don't know what to do else. That's their
Yeah.
escape. That's the only thing they're in. Nobody does it for enjoyment. Really, nobody does it. It's just for
Uh,
the
they do. I
escapism.
think they do. I think that's the guys they
Maybe to
fall
fit in.
under,
Maybe to
right?
fit in.
Yeah.
Maybe to
I
fit
mean
in.
the for
Maybe.
the three top reasons that teenagers start to use drugs and alcohol is number one, they're curious, right?
Hmm.
Number two, peer pressure, right? And
Hmm.
number three, to change how they feel. And that's usually where it starts. And if you look back at, most people who have addiction problems, they start in their teenage years. And a lot of that comes from, we don't live in a world, really. I would love to say just our society, but in a world where talking about how you feel and talking about what you think without thinking that it's, the do all and end all, we don't talk about how to deal with it. We don't talk about, we're just like, just pretend it's not happening and just keep going, you know? And for me, the thing I like to talk to about kids the most is it's normal to feel the way that you're feeling. It's normal to think the way that you're thinking. Like we have a suicide epidemic that's going on that's out of control in this country, right? We also have a drug addiction problem that's out of control in this country. And I think, like, similar to what you talked about, like all of the pressure that we're under just to be the best, just to get chosen, just to be, just to matter, right? It's the entire world has the basic wound of I don't matter, right? And so everybody's trying to prove to everybody that
That
they matter.
I'm here,
Right.
look
Yeah.
at me.
Yeah. And I matter. And the truth is we all matter. And I think that there's a huge difference between who we are on a spiritual level, like who our consciousness is, versus who our ego is, right? And our ego is the one that creates the competition, is the one that creates the desperation, is the one that creates that feeling of we're never going to be good enough and we're never going to do enough, and we push ourselves to levels that are, unsustainable, right? And the truth is I think that every person on the planet has a purpose for being here, every one of us. And the way that we look at stuff has to evolve on some level, because we've only gotten this far with what we believe and what we know so far. And as a whole, the human being is shifting in the way that things are going to happen. I mean, the way that people go to work is going to be very different in the next 20 years. The way that people find their self-esteem and their worth in life is going to change in the next 20 years, right? The way that people connect to each other is already shifted, right? And not for the better necessarily, right? But it's going to have to go back the other way. Like sometimes we have to go to extremes. You go to the far worst end to all the way to the other end, right? And it's a journey before you
Right.
find the middle, right? And I think that that's kind of where we're at. And it's an interesting time to be alive. I don't think it's harder than any other time to live. The challenges are just really different. But
Different.
I
The
think,
challenges are different.
yeah, but I think that the problems are the same. Like back in the early 1900s, in the 1800s, people didn't talk about how they felt or what they thought, because people were terrified of what other people would think if they put that stuff out there, right? But the truth is we all kind of think the same and we all kind of feel the same, just at different times. And if we could really connect on a human level with each other about what the truth is for us, about what we're really going through, then that stuff wouldn't own us. That stuff would not become everything in our lives as it is that we're trying to run away from and trying to get away from. So I don't know.
You know, if I have to ask you one question, is
Hmm.
depression,
Hmm.
is it a condition? Is it a disease, or is it a state? What is depression to you?
I would say it's a state. I mean, depression is about regretting the past, right? Regretting what I've done, where I've been, what I haven't done, who I haven't been around, whatever. That's what depression is really about, right? Anxiety is about worrying about the future, right? So when I look at two things in that realm, right? Like if I'm in a depressed place, what am I regretting about what's happened in my life so far? There's nothing I can do about it, right? So it's my ego just sitting in place, stewing over what they did wrong. It's a way of beating ourselves up, right? And depression is a real thing. It's not a real thing. And it's also a normal thing. It's super important for the human psyche to go through periods of depression and to go through periods of anxiety, because those things ended up pointing us in the direction that we need to go in, right? And so like if I had not been depressed and I had not been full of anxiety and all of that stuff, I would not have been motivated to go forward. Right? It gave me direction. It gave me purpose. Like my depression, my anxiety, my suicidal thoughts, my addiction, all of that stuff has all given me purpose in my life. Like it didn't happen to me for no reason. It happened for me to have purpose to help others learn how to deal with theirs. Make sense?
I think it does. And, we talked about youngsters and their problems, but
Mm-hmm.
as we grow up and we are at 30, 35, or 40, in the,
Mm-hmm.
if I have to say, the midlife, where people are technically stable in that sense, like materially they have sorted things out, they are married, or maybe they have kids. It's like the stable time right now. But still,
Mm-hmm.
there is so much of a different kind of insecurities that come in when you're at that age. When
Yeah.
you're 20, you can take risk. You can do so many things. When you're 40, you cannot take risks. You feel, I'm at this condition, like really stable, and but
Mm-hmm.
still they don't feel secure. even though financially they are secure, in terms of money they are, but inherently there's such insecurity, there is such anxiety which they cannot even talk about. Because when
Yeah.
you're young, you could say to your parents, I'm feeling like that. But when you're 40, you don't know, you feel ashameless, like, kind of a thing, like, hey, I cannot say that I'm
Yeah.
anxious, all of that, maybe to your friends, but maybe you feel a bit ashamed about talking about
Hmm.
such things. So, what is
Right.
that midlife crisis is like, basically, and why do that happen, and how can somebody combat it?
Well, I think that midlife crisis is really about, again, it's kind of like regretting the past, right? We grow up as kids and we have all of these ideas and we have all of these dreams and all of these things that we want to be. But then we grow up and we get into the real world and, like, it doesn't look the way we thought it was going to look. So we jump into a life and we push forward to get into that life. And I need a husband and I need kids and I need this career. And then we wake up one day and go, oh my God, what have I done? Right? Like, this isn't who I wanted to be. This is not my beautiful life. You know what I mean? Like, this is not what I wanted in life. And I think that that's why understanding regret is so important, because, we go on a path thinking that we're getting to a certain place and we think that these things outside of us are going to make me happy, only to wake up one day realizing that they don't make us happy, right? And so, you know, and again, it's not about right or wrong as much as it is about what works and what doesn't, right? And maybe I've taken a job, maybe I've taken a career path, maybe I've married somebody, right, which happened to be, that wasn't fitting for me in my life. It did not feel right after a certain amount of time. And I said, you know what, I can't spend the rest of my life with this person because I don't even like this person.
Anymore,
Right?
yeah,
Like, yeah,
anymore.
and I can't be here anymore. And I was devastated. Like, I never got married to get divorced. Like, that was not my point.
Nobody
But at the
does.
same time, yeah, but at the same time, who I was when I married that man and who I was by the time I left that man, I was not the same person. I had changed so much that, he didn't like me either, because I was not the person that he had married either anymore, right? Nor was he. So it's really about learning how to, look at these things in our life not as bad things or as negative things, right? But as, I'm sorry, but as things that are telling us that there's a new direction coming for you. There's new opportunities coming for you. There may be something different in it, because it wasn't until I got divorced from my husband that I went to college, that I went to law school, that I changed all of these things in my life that I had not done up until that point, right? Because I didn't think were important, or I didn't think was the path I was going to go down, that all of a sudden I was like, no, I really want to do this now. And so all of a sudden my life went into a totally different direction as a result of that whole path. But I may not have ever gotten there had it not happened exactly the way that it did.
So you would never, like, if I have to tell, that's the paradoxical thing. If you could go back to your past self and you could say three things to change, you would never do that, would you? To say change.
I used to think that I wouldn't, right? That I wouldn't go back and tell my past self, my younger self, what would I tell them to do different? But I would, because something that I've learned as an adult, there's really like two kinds of people, right? There's the kind of people who know that sacrificing in the beginning of your life makes the end of your life a lot more relaxed, right? Whereas people who in the beginning want to have a good time and don't want to sacrifice anything, right, end up working a lot harder at the end of their life, right? And so, but that's something that only comes with experience, right? So, no, I wouldn't necessarily change anything, because I love my life and I love who I am as a result of everything that's happened to me, right? But if I could do things different, I would probably switch those around, because I'm tired. I'm tired and I'm old and I wish I could just sleep, but I'm working, which is great. And I love to work because I love connecting to people and I love being around people and I love helping people, right? And I don't believe that I could have been a really good coach at a young age, right? Because I didn't have the experience. I didn't have the real understanding. I didn't have the know-how, right? So now, because of what I've gone through and because of what I've learned, all of a sudden now I have huge value to give to somebody else.
Is your husband gone still? That noise has been really,
Oh yeah, no. Well, it's you have to understand. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here, so everybody's getting up and going to work and going to. My son just left for school, so now everybody's gone. So
okay.
my problem.
So, so, you know, your coaching involves empathic listening, sorry, empathic
Hmm.
listening, and what do you call that, personal guidance and reflective writing. That's what it is,
Yeah.
and how do these elements contribute to what you call sobriety? Like, how can you get sober from this or empower living? How does this all connect? Especially the reflective writing is that term, and listening. So I'm trying to understand, how did this contribute to sobriety and empowered living?
So the hardest thing, like I can see you clearly. If you were to come to me and tell me everything that's going on with you, because I'm not emotionally attached to anything that's going on in your life, I can see it clearly. I can see it objectively, and I can help you see where the patterns are that you're missing or the pieces of information that are missing in your thinking. For myself, I can't do that for myself, right? And so why having a coach or why having somebody in your life help you get through that stuff is so important, is because the hardest person for me to see is myself, right? And so when I got sober, I didn't have I couldn't think for myself. I couldn't, because all I was feelings and crazy thoughts and all this stuff. I couldn't control anything that was going on. So it wasn't until I let somebody in my life who said things to me like, would you like to do that differently? Would you like to know how to say that differently? And until I started to ask questions, I mean, probably the most important thing that ever happened to me was learning how to ask questions. People who don't ask questions can't learn, and you can't know something and learn something at the same time, right? So so and being somebody who learns how to listen to people, my job is to hear where people have holes in their thinking, right? So that I can help them fill that gap with something that's going to benefit them in a different direction, right? And so that's what I do. And a lot of the times we don't know how we're thinking or how we're feeling until we start to put that on paper. Once I put stuff on paper, that's what's real, right? Because we can sit and have, 60,000 thoughts in a day and think that all of them are needing attention. When the truth is that they don't, right? And they don't all mean something. We don't have to pick up every one of them. But there's a thread that goes through all of those thoughts that creates a baseline for us that either propels us or holds us back, right? And a lot of the time it holds us back. So if I have somebody in my life who's helping me see what's holding me back, I can let go of those thoughts, right? Because limitation, pain, all of that stuff only exists between your two ears. That's it. That's the only place it exists. So if I can change the way I think and change the way I see things, then all of a sudden I can have a very different experience in life. But if I'm so committed to what I see and what I think, it's really hard to change when I believe that everything I think and feel is right.
You have coached with so many people, and guided so many people. You had such a journey yourself,
Yes.
but would you like to share any, like, specific, if I have to say, life-changing story that you can think, you would like to share to the listeners, and that can you think that stands out in your memory, like it's still fresh, like this experience of somebody, or I don't know if you had, like, some life-changing story would you like to share?
It's the only thing that's coming up for me right now is one, my journey is about self-responsibility, right? That's really what it's about. Like we're born as children, right, as babies, and we're dependent on other people. And, and there's a belief system that comes when we're dependent on other people, right? And that dependency creates this place for most of us where it's like it's either your fault but it's not my fault, right? Is it ever my fault, right? And I'm really good at making other people's fault, but I'm also really good at making my happiness other people's responsibility as well. Like, once I get married to the right man, then I'll be happy. Once my children do what I need them to do, then I'll be happy. And learning how to be happy regardless of what other people are doing in their lives, or learning how to be self-sufficient regardless of who's in my life, right? That's really been what this whole journey has been about. And so I have countless stories about people that I have coached who have gone from these places of feeling worthless and like they have no value and they have nothing to contribute to the world because, they don't have all these perfect things in place, to helping them see that your life is not waiting for something else to happen so you can be who you're supposed to be. You have the opportunity to be who you're supposed to be right now, and and that's been my experience too. It's a journey, and it's not always comfortable. It's actually horribly uncomfortable a lot of the time.
Right.
And the pain comes from discomfort is very different than the pain from
But it
holding
is
on to
rewarding.
stuff that
It
doesn't
is
work.
rewarding.
Oh,
It
it's
is rewarding
extremely
in the end.
rewarding.
In the end, it will take time. At the start, it will
Yeah.
hurt. It will hurt, but
Yes.
great things
Yes.
hurt. You have to
Yes.
go through pain
Yeah.
to recover. And this is the
Absolutely.
last one you have to really go through to finally get that recovery done, and you have to suffer more than you
Absolutely.
have imagined. It's more
Yeah.
than your expectation that I'm not going to suffer too much. Now it's going to be good, good, good. But now
Yeah.
the real things. The
Well, and I
coaching is
think
not easy. In that
no,
sense.
it's not. And that's the thing, is that can you be committed to getting new ideas? Can you be willing to be
Open,
challenged? I mean, that's
open.
part of our society's problem right now, is that everybody just wants to be right, and nobody actually really wants to consider what might be right for me isn't right for you, right? Or what's right for me today may be different tomorrow, right? Everybody's just really interested in being right and making everybody see how right they are right now. So it's kind of, it's sad, actually. It's a lot of wasted time.
But what are those key elements do you focus on, like to help individuals to build what you call that a solid foundation in
Hmm.
recovery or life skill? What key elements are there that you help the clients or people who come to you to build that foundation?
I mean, there's so many different skills that I give people through the coaching process, but I would have to say probably the number one thing I help people understand is that how you feel and how you think are just flags to get your attention that there's something on the other side of that. And if you can get on the other side of that, you can have a different experience, right? And so when people are come to me and they're in pain and they're overwhelmed, my job is really, I do a lot of meditation, and I teach people a lot about have your head and your feet in the same place at the same time, right? And most people, that's a huge ask for a lot of people, because we're always thinking about what do I got to do and where have I been and what haven't I done and where's it going, and but they're
Always
never in
here.
the actual, yeah, but they're never in the moment they're actually in. And the truth is if we can learn how to not think about stuff that isn't actually happening, we would all be so much happier, because in this moment, in this very moment, I'm 100% fine. I'm perfect. Everything's perfect exactly the way it should be. I'm happy. I'm okay. I'm having a great conversation with you, right? My dog is on my lap. Everybody has left. Thank God. You know what I mean? And like, in this moment, I'm okay. But if I get off of this call and I start thinking about, well, what do I got to do? And where do I got to go? And why didn't I do this? And I should have done that. And all of this stuff, I'm going to have a bad day if I start
You
falling
won't
into
even
that
do the
stuff.
conversation rightly if you were not in the
No,
present. You would
totally,
be
totally.
in the head and thinking 10 different things, and I say, hey, this question is what? Like
Yeah. What do
this
you mean?
happens.
Yeah.
Like so you're going in the mind, but when you are focused, and that's what
Yes.
we have to learn to survive in moments. We have to learn to
Yeah.
be here, to be conscious. It is like I was talking in one of my podcasts that if you go on the road, there's the jaywalking. Cross the road where the signal is green, like
Yep.
the road crossing for a person. You
Hmm.
go there and people are walking, they have the headphones on, someone is just walking, but they are not really walking, they're in something in their heads. And what happens,
Totally.
like I tell you, this is a really real life example. Somebody's walking as a car comes and he's walking, he's really conscious, it seems so, but he's walking, and a car comes like beep beep, it's like the horn, and then they're going, what? Oh, he's like, whoa, because he
Mm-hmm.
was somewhere else, and that really single moment he came back and consciously,
Yeah.
wow, that's just second. It's like you're
Yeah.
walking in the night and somebody came with a knife. For a moment,
Yeah.
that consciousness comes because you were in that time also in your head, trying to not
Yes.
feel, and it's fun, right? It's fun to be in the story. It's fun to make that imaginative world. It is, but it is
Totally.
sucking and taking away your energy. It's taking away
Yeah.
all of that power.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. And we don't realize how much time we don't spend in the present until it becomes really painful,
Yeah.
and that's how people learn. I mean, one of the biggest fears of the human being is the fear of the unknown, right? And being in the present, there is a level of not knowing what's going to happen next. And that's a lot that creates anxiety for a lot of people. And so they go to places in their mind, right, where they already know what's happening, right? Because it's safe. And so if we can learn how to
Yes.
live
Yes.
comfortably with the fear of not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, I have people who call me and they're freaking out about stuff, and I'll say, but what's happening today? Where are you today? What's happening right now? Is what you're thinking about happening right now? And they're like, well, no. And I said, then why are you thinking about it? I said, the world could blow up tomorrow. We live with a lot of crazy people on this planet. They could blow up the planet tomorrow. And I said, do you want to spend the rest of your life, which is this day, worrying about stuff that's never going to happen? Is that how you want to spend the last day on earth? And all of a sudden it gets into perspective for people, and they go, oh my God, why am I worrying about stuff that's not actually happening? you know and all of us have conversations with people who aren't there, right? You're mad at somebody and you're like, well, this is how I'm going to have this conversation, and this is what I want to say to them. But they're not even standing there, but you're having an emotional
Pre-planning
conversation.
everything. We are used to it.
Totally.
We have, that
Yeah.
you could say that like 30 minutes before our recording, I'm going to talk like this. I'm going to talk like this, and this
Uh-huh.
is what he's going to ask, and ask something really different. And I have lived
Totally.
that. I have lived that
Yeah.
too. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm a guilty. Everybody has,
Yes.
But one person learns from that thing and changes, and other keeps on doing the same mistake, understanding
Right.
that you cannot predict. And what is
No.
gone, that is gone. There is no point of clinging to it. Yes, it is good to look back and reflect and learn. That is
And
good.
learn.
But
Totally.
not attached to it and thinking about it, what has happened. And we are those kind of species, always clinging to the past, thinking,
Yes.
I should have, why did I got into that relationship? Why did I did that? I could have done that. That it's finished.
Mm-hmm.
But you're giving
Yeah.
all your time and energy to that idiotic thing. And it's idiotic. It is idiotic. I've seen smart people doing the same mistake, which is really idiotic.
We all do it. It's a human condition.
Yes.
It's not. None of us are not going to do that. Like, every person does that on some level, but depending on how much control you really have over your mind will determine how happy you are, really, ultimately. Because people who live in the past and people who live in the future, there's no happiness there. You know what I mean? Like, you can even remember the happiest time of your life, but you will miss or regret that happy time because it's not happening now. Happiness only exists today, right? Happiness only exists. Feelings of joy, feelings of elation only happen in the moment. You can't relive them if they've happened before. You just have to have them now. And depending on what we focus on and how much control we have over how we think, right? Because what we think and who we are not the same thing, right? Our brain thinks. That's what it does. It's made to make problems, solve them, problems, solve them. That's all your brain does. But that doesn't mean that that's who you are.
But one thing that comes to my mind, about this is that a lot of people who come to you for coaching. Okay, I'll get to that question later on. Let's get into this question. Male's mind, and there is because you've got coached both females and males. What
Yes.
are the thinking patterns of males and females? Like, have you seen some differences in? I mean, there are definitely in the way
Yeah.
they approach things because it's a different angle. But what are those different angles that female have and males have often? The triggers, which I have to say, and the strengths also that you see there are clear differences that outline male and female. You can see the difference. Okay, this is the female and this is the male. What patterns have you noticed between these two genders?
I mean, oh my God, that we could talk about that for hours.
Yeah,
Like, that's a
yeah.
that's a really long conversation. But at the end of the day, I think what it comes down to is we may get to certain places differently, but ultimately we all want the same thing. right? Like whether we're male or female or whatever, right? We all want the same thing. But our first approach, almost always, whether we're male or female, is how do I get somebody else to change so I don't have to? Right? If I can get this person to be different, if I can get this person to understand, if I can get this person to believe me, if I can get this person, whatever it is, to do blah, 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 then I'll be okay. And both males and females do that, right? And that's the ego. The ego doesn't want to have to do the work.
Right.
The ego wants other people to do the work, right? And so most of the time, whether it's male or female, I spend a lot of time getting people back into, well, what can you do differently, right? How can you change this situation? Because when I change, the whole world around me changes, right? But when I'm trying to change you, nothing changes at all, right? So as long as I'm focused on trying to get you to be different, I'm in trouble. But if I focus on, okay, well, what can I do? Well, I can learn how to talk differently. I can learn how to behave differently. I can learn how to ask for what I want. I can learn how to identify what I'm feeling. I can learn all kinds of things about me. And when I change, the world around me changes. And that's what I spend most of my time with men and women doing. Couples that I work with all the time. They come to me and they're like, I'm getting divorced. And I said, okay, that's good. And I let them rant about how much of a horrible person their spouse is, right? And then I bring it back to them and go, okay, so, but what can you do differently? How can you be empathetic to what's going on with your partner so that you can be different? Because just because that's going on with them doesn't mean it has to be going on with
It's
you.
always like, we want to say they are wrong, he's wrong, she's wrong. We never look what is wrong with us. That is the last
Never.
place we look at with our faults. We think always
Always.
there's a problem with this person, this thing. It's never with
Mm-hmm.
me. We have to
Mm-hmm.
think our problems, and that's the last time where we look. And people don't look there. People think I'm good, I'm perfect, and I am who I am. We want to have our ego that we are not doing something wrong. And
Yes.
if we are wrong, somebody tells us we are wrong, either we deny it or we go
Mm-hmm.
into the depressive state, oh, I'm wrong. And I've seen this a lot with, I don't know, men don't easily get affected from these things. They say, okay, I'm not going to get too much care about it. And with women, they can get easily affected when they heard some criticism. Some of them that they can, because they are really easily like vulnerable to this criticism. They say, okay, uh, they
I
take
think
it.
everybody's vulnerable to
Yeah.
criticism. It just depends on who the criticism is coming from.
Yes, if it's the close person, that is one thing. But individually, when you help clients to understand their triggers and their
Hmm.
patterns, how
Hmm.
do you help them identify? Because they cannot identify, they don't know themselves. Okay, the female doesn't
No,
know themselves and the male, but how do you help them identify their patterns and their triggers? What is your approach? How do you do that? It's something I'm trying to
it's
understand.
about asking the right questions, right? Like
Mm.
letting people talk about whatever it is that's bothering them, or letting them talk about whatever the situation was that they're concerned with, right? And letting them air all of that stuff out, and then taking it back and saying, okay, well, let's talk about how did you react in this situation, and what did you contribute to this situation, right? And do you think that what you contributed helped the situation or made the situation worse? Right? And getting people to really think about things in a different way. But those are things that, like, if you don't know how to ask yourself those kinds of questions, you can't have any kind of deep emotional, rearrangement within yourself unless you learn how to ask yourself different questions. And I couldn't do that for myself just out of the blue. I needed to have somebody in my life to help ask me those questions so that I could eventually say, okay, what do I need to do different here? What did I do that may have contributed to this situation and made it worse or made it better? What do I wish I could have done differently? Right? We never ask that question. What do I wish I could have done differently? But we're really good at saying, you know what you could do differently? You could stop doing blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Or whatever. And so it's really about, teaching people how to ask themselves different questions. Because again, my philosophy in everything is if I change me, the world around me changes. It's never if I change you, the world around me changes. That's not a thing. That doesn't ever happen. That's delusion land, right? But if I change me, the world around me changes. So a lot of the times I don't know how I have to change me until I have an interaction with you that goes badly.
if somebody comes to you and they rant it all out, you help them identify, all of those things are good. You help
Mm-hmm.
them, okay, it's good on the paper, everything is going to be good, great. But the thing is, it's just on the conversation. If I'm talking to you virtually, or I met you IRL and we had a conversation, you helped me and all that, then what? You go your ways, I go I way, I'm in my home or somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
People, you can give them like what to change, how to change, but what if they don't implement it? What is that thing that they don't commit, the thing that they go home and they do the things that you told them, then you have to work upon this and this, like that roadmap kind
Mm-hmm.
of a thing.
It's
uh,
it's a it's a process. It's a
mm,
process. It's not a there's not a one thing fits and it you know what I mean? It's not like putting a key in a lock.
magic pill,
Yeah,
magic pill.
and it does. Like I always tell
Yeah.
people that but human belief systems are like a multifaceted million, click lock, right? And every time we have a conversation, every time we do a little work, it unclicks a little bit and it unclicks a little bit every time I do the work. It doesn't just happen overnight where all of a sudden I'm just somebody different. Like that's not a thing. So getting into reality about how things shift, right, in ourselves is part of the process of going through coaching and helping people, understand, look, you didn't become this person overnight. You're not going to unbecome this person overnight. It's a process. And every day I just have to be committed to the process. Every day I just have to be willing to do maybe one thing differently, right? Not pick up the phone when I'm angry. Just don't pick up the phone when you're angry. Okay, I can do that today, right? Or go for a walk every day, whatever it is. But it's learning how to do one little thing at a time and not expect everything to unwind in a minute, because that's not what happens.
We have
When I
to be
work with
patient,
couples, yeah,
that's something
we
that
have to be
people want quick
patient
results.
and
People
diligent.
want,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have to
But
be patient and we have to be diligent. You want quick results? Drugs and alcohol, that's quick results. That will end you up in, dead, jail, or in a, mental institution if you go far enough with it, right? So it's like quick results never get you to the place you think
it
they're
never
going to get you
cures
to.
you. It can give you temporary
No.
relief. That is only one
Yes.
thing. But that is even a delusion that is giving you temporary relief. It's just a delusion
Yeah,
because it's for a moment.
totally.
There's no cure. There's no coming
Hmm.
out of
You
it.
might as well just deal with the moment. Deal with the moment, learn what
Yeah.
you're supposed to, and move on. And the truth is that we live in a world where instant gratification is everything, and it's really sad.
It is. But one thing that I always say that, all of this thing requires one thing is that is great courage. That is
Yes.
something that I think is a necessary requirement, and you have to be
Yes.
courageous to face your fears, face your whatever you're facing, in life.
Yeah.
Even if you don't go to a coach, you are by your own, you have to have that courage, because the coaches can help you identify it. They cannot live your life. They are not
Yeah.
that even the doctor cannot. Even a doctor cannot. They can help you fix it, but at the end of the day, you know what doctors say? You fix your
Mm.
body. We just help it, facilitate the speed of that cure. Yeah, at the end of it, the body fixes itself. That's how the body
Yeah.
works. In the medical term, that's the golden secret. The
Yes.
body is capable of fixing itself. We just
Yes.
help it with some medicine or some kind of a, I don't know, anesthesia. So, like all of those fancy words, we help them.
Welcome to Luvo. Embody health, happiness, and success with Luvo's manifestation and high performance modes. Manifest your greatest desires with our unique manifestation technique and enhance your overall well being. Our high performance technique will ignite your enthusiasm and help you reach your state of flow. Download our free app and start living your best life.
But what is the
Hmm.
role of spirituality in your coaching? I'm also kind of curious. What is the role of spirituality in your coaching?
The role of spirituality in my coaching is whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. That's a spiritual law, period, right? Whatever energy I put into, I'm going to get out of it. If I'm focused on the problem's going to get bigger. But if I focus on the solution, then the solution will get bigger. And the world matches your enthusiasm. If I'm super enthusiastic about something, not just in the initial moment, but continuously, then whatever I put into it, I'm going to get out of it. And so if I give it all of everything I have, I will learn a tremendous amount. And that was my experience. But if I put this much into it, if I put nothing into it at all, I'm not going to get anything out of it. So the spiritual law is your enthusiasm will be matched based on what you feed it, right?
So a lot of people, have go to different kind of coaching, therapy, or
Mm-hmm.
just don't go anywhere. They say, okay, I'm going to fix myself. I don't need anyone's help to do that. It's again the
Mm-hmm.
thing that we can do it ourselves, and it's good. It's good. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying it's a bad thing. You are inherently capable of fixing yourself if you have that courage that I'm going to fix
To
myself.
a certain point, yes, I
Yes,
agree with that. To a certain point,
certain
but if
point,
you
yes,
want, like,
if you are,
you know,
yeah, yeah, that's obviously a human intervention from somebody else who can understand your problems from that non-biased perspective really helps that speed up the process. If I have to say speed up the process, but again, if
mm-hmm,
you are think you're capable of it, but there's no greater power than your own courage. So definitely, what role do you think motivation and fulfillment play in the recovery journey? That, when you say, I'm satisfied with what I have, and motivation to live, because a lot of people lose that will to live, even sometimes. And that
mm-hmm,
people have gone to that stage, like you said, about suicide. People go to that
mm-hmm,
stage where they have lost motivation to live, and then they come back from it and survive, and that's the big
mm-hmm,
miracle, I feel.
mm-hmm.
So what role does motivation and fulfillment play in recovery journey?
Well, I think that motivation is great in the beginning. You know what I mean? And your motivation will go up and down through the process, right? Like, I'm not motivated 100% every day to do anything ever, right? So, my motivation again grows based on how much energy I put into it, number one. But number two, there are going to be times when I'm super motivated and there are going to be times when I'm not. And those times when I'm not is going to be a true test to my character and how willing I am to sacrifice in the moment to just do what I need to do instead of doing what I feel like doing. Right. Because that's probably one of the biggest problems I deal with people. Well, I don't feel like it. Well, I don't feel like doing a lot of things. Like, I don't feel like ever getting out of bed. Like, let's be clear, right? The only thing I ever want to really do is take a nap. But if all I did was take a nap in life, I wouldn't get anywhere, right? I'd be super depressed. So I always tell people, don't wait for your feelings to catch up with you and give you the motivation to do this, right? Your motivation has to be something bigger than just how do I feel, right? And
What
motivation
could
comes
that
and
be?
goes.
What could that be? What could that big motivation be?
I mean, that's why we have dreams, right? That's why people have, what is your dream? And dreams aren't necessarily about making the dream come true as much as it is about a direction, right? Like, I have this dream of being blah, blah, blah. So that's the direction I'm going to go in. Doesn't mean that that's where I'm going to land, right? But that's where I'm going to go. Dreams are a way of motivation. Having ideas about what you want your life to look like, that's a motivation. Wanting to feel better, that's a motivation. Whatever it is, there's a lot of motivations that are outside just how we feel. And to pick those up and run with them.
You know, we talked about people living in their heads, here and there, and what
Hmm.
they are doing, imagining, creating
Right.
worlds in their head. But if they use that power, that is a power, if they use that
Yeah.
power in the right direction, my question is, and this is a very serious question in the if you can understand in the right sense, how powerful is imagination?
A
If it is,
hundred. It's everything, right? Because the stories I tell myself determine my life. If I'm telling myself that I'm not worth anything, that I'm no good, that life is just, I hate life, nobody loves me, everybody hates me, whatever it is, the stories I tell myself will generate my life path, right? So I have to make sure that the stories I'm telling myself are getting me to a place that's going in a direction I want to go in. If my life's, and that's how we can tell, right? If my life's not going in the direction I want it to, it has everything to do with the stories I tell myself, the imagination I have for my life, for me, for people in my life. So it means everything, right? And being able to be creative about how you solve the problems that you're challenged with is all about imagination. It's all about learning how to create a new existence, right? And if I'm not creative in the way that I solve problems, I'll just get tired of solving problems and say, I don't want to do this anymore.
so you think these dreams and these imagination inspire us to go beyond the limits, go cross our limits, and really see our true potential, increase our potential, if I have to say, in
Yes.
that sense,
Yeah.
And this is a very powerful tool, but we often don't use it at the in the right way. We use it in a really wrong way. I mean, we get so much of things in life, and we don't feel grateful for it. We think, okay, I have it, and we
Mm,
feel less grateful. But once that is taken away from us, that
mm-hmm.
power, then we realize its worth. Maybe eyes could be one object, maybe ears could be
Totally.
one object. We understand that a lot of people, like, you don't understand how many people don't even have eyes to see really rightly. We have great eyes to see and ears to hear, but a lot of people
Yeah.
don't understand that's value, how much value you have. We think everybody has it. No, not everybody has it, because you think
No.
everybody does.
Yeah. Well, and
So
gratitude is required
yeah,
for satisfaction. You cannot be
right,
joyful without gratitude.
right.
And there's a lot of miserable people on this planet. And when you have a conversation with them for 5 minutes, it's because they're ungrateful. Like I can have a conversation with somebody and in 5 minutes know whether they're grateful or they're not. And I'm grateful for my life.
How
I'm
is that?
grateful for the
How do
things
you
that
know that
happen
if somebody's grateful or not in 5 minutes? Then
based on their perception of what they're talking about. Is it happening to them or is it happening in spite of them?
how does
There's a
that make a
difference.
difference? That is how is that
Because
make a difference?
because living in a victim mentality, which means the world is happening to me, right? Which is, oh, poor me, everything's happening to me. My life is horrible. I have the worst luck. I'm never going to get anywhere. I'm never going to have the job I want. Yeah, because you are ungrateful for the life that you've been given, right? So when somebody's in a victim mentality, you know, they're not grateful. But when somebody's grateful, they're much more like, it's going to be what it's going to be. I'm going to see how it's going to go. We'll see. You know what I mean? They're not dangerously committed to things being one way or not another. They're not looking at their life as, oh my God, I can't make things stop happening to me. It's like, really? That's interesting. The rest of us can, but you can't? Okay. So it's really, there's a difference between people who are grateful and who are not, and it's pretty obvious pretty quickly. Well, for me, that's what I do for a living, so I guess that's why.
You know, I feel one of the most powerful energies in human history, and in us, is anger.
Mm,
And the second is lust. I feel, these two are such powerful energies. Lust is a very different topic we go on, but when it comes to anger, lust is
mm,
obviously a really, really that kind of a topic. When we think about so many things we don't have to get into, but anger, in that very moment, we lose ourselves. We lose the conscious. Like, we don't know what to do. When we are angry, we do, and we have so much power. Like, when you are angry, your potential has reached 10 times more. You can, I mean, I have to say this, I've said this, a lot of people don't understand it really when I say it in the I have to make them explain it in a really layman's language. There is a rock which is weighted 10 kilograms, okay, and you cannot pick it up by one hand when you are absolutely conscious normally. But once you're angry, you can pick up the same rock very easily. You have your
mm-hmm,
potential, because in anger you have so much access to energy of such a great potential. You can do things you can never do when you're conscious.
mm-hmm,
Your capabilities, and in anger most people do wrong things. I heard this in America. There's a Missouri is a place, in America, it's this
mm-hmm,
city. So there's a
mm-hmm,
prison in there, and there was a research conducted by a University of Pennsylvania there. And I think we talked about this when we had a conversation. They conducted in the research in the Missouri prison, that why are most murderers, most rapists, most all of these people are in there who killed people, basically the murderers. And a lot of people they interviewed there, the criminals, they say, I killed somebody, but I didn't realize I was killing him. I was just, it just didn't happen in the moment, and I didn't. What did I do? Because they were not
mm-hmm,
conscious of when they were doing it. They were so
mm-hmm,
in the anger. The anger was taking toll and control of them, that they were not, like, it was like they were possessed by anger, and they
mm-hmm,
lose control, and they do things. And that's what we do in real life, right? When we are angry, Quincy, we lose
mm-hmm.
control, and there are
Yeah.
so many different things that when we lose control of. So how do you help clients to get control of these great emotions like lust, anger, anger. It's not true that you have to let go. Anger is a good emotion to have, unless how will you make
Yes.
decisions. But how do you make them in a say that it's not going to take control of you? You have the control over them. How do you do that?
Well, there's a difference between anger and rage, right? And
Right.
rage is what I think you're talking about more so than just anger. Like, because I can be angry and not lose consciousness, basically, right? With rage, it's like going into a blackout, right? Because the feeling is so intense, right? The energy is so intense that it's a propellant, basically. It takes me to another dimension, right? In my consciousness, right? But and a lot of the time behind rage really is fear, right? And so if I can get people to stay away from the intensity of the emotion, but talk about all the beliefs that are coming up as a result of that, then all of a sudden you can see, what's really going on here, right? And, I know my perfect example of that is like yelling at my kids when they were little, right? Like they would do something where they were going to hurt themselves, right? Or hurt somebody else. And that always brought that rage out in me because I was so afraid they were going to hurt themselves, or that was not going to be fixable, you know what I mean, or hurt somebody else, that it scared me to death. And when I realized that that's where that was coming from, then all of a sudden I could say, they're okay. They're okay. They're not hurting themselves. They're okay. Relax, right? And learning how to identify the beliefs behind stuff so that I understand where the intensity is coming from. Like, again, for me, feelings are just a red flag that is trying to teach us something about ourselves, right? Something about us or something about somebody else. So if I can learn how to look at how I'm feeling or how I'm behaving as a key to learning about myself, then all of a sudden I can start to look at it differently, right? But if I just allow how I feel and how I behave to rule my world and not be responsible for changing it, right? That's irresponsible, right? That's what irresponsible looks like.
Yes, that is definitely a great way to explain that. But a lot of people who go to a healing process and thank God they are saved and they are now okay, and they also heal themselves in the process. Like let's
Mhm.
say you are, and one of your clients who comes to you heals himself, and they are out in the world now living their life, okay. But sometimes after the post treatment as well, there are so many challenges that come. They are fixed, yet they are not. After some time, those
That's not a
same
thing.
problems can come back again. It's
Hmm.
just like one of the triggers. So, what is that post treat? Is it? And it's crucial. It's crucial for you as a coach as well. Like you fix them. They have fixed
Hmm.
themselves. Now, if the same problems come back after a few years down the line, the
Well, but
same things.
I think that that's the wrong word to use. Like, we don't get fixed. We can repair things,
Hmm.
right? But we can't. I mean, fixed is, people have a belief that if you fix something, it's not broken anymore, right? And I don't believe that people are broken, right? I don't believe that anybody's broken. I think that we're born perfect, right? And we are given challenges that create need for
Grow,
other people in our
grow.
life, right? So that we can become the person we're supposed to, right? And so, I don't believe that we're broken, but we give people, in coaching, I give people all kinds of different tools. And I always explain life as like a video game, right? Video games, you start out as one avatar, right? And you have to get through the first level. And in that first level, you have to slay all these demons and you get all these gifts and you learn all these things about how to get to the next level, right? And then all of a sudden you're at the next level,
You're
right? And now
prepared.
you've got, yeah, and now you've got a whole new set of tools, right? You got a new set of tools, you got new demons to slay, you got new gifts coming to you, right? And you learn everything you're supposed to learn to get through that level to get to the next level, right? And life is very much the same way. Like, you're never done evolving as a person. You're never done learning as a person. Like, our job, my belief is that humans are only here to do two things: to learn and to love. And that's it. So if I look at everything in my life as an opportunity to learn and or to love, then all of a sudden I can see things through a whole different lens, right? And the tools that I may use today They may work tomorrow, but they may need to be leveled up. Like I may have used an axe on level 1 of the video game, but maybe I get, I don't know, a dump truck in the second level that I get to just run people over with. I mean, who knows, right? So the I don't know what, that was the dumbest analogy ever, but I get different tools at different parts of my life, and they grow. Tools start small, but they can get bigger. And so if I learn to look at things as just opportunities to love and to learn, then all of a sudden I can see life through a different lens.
Why is that, Quincy, that so many people live with their families, with they have life partners, they have everybody around them, but they
Mm-hmm.
still feel lonely?
Because loneliness is self-absorption. It's self-obsession. Loneliness is about me wanting to be important, me wanting my needs met, me not getting what I want, me not having this, me, right? You cannot be lonely and connect to other people. Like me connecting to you right now, I'm not lonely in this moment, but I'm not thinking about me, right? I'm thinking about how do I have a conversation with you and the people who listen to your
It's not
podcast
about
in a
you.
way.
It's not. It's
No,
about other. It's not about
yeah,
you.
I'm not
So that.
thinking about what I'm getting, right? Loneliness comes from me being obsessed with why am I not getting what I want, right? Because that's just me, myself, and I. But if I'm thinking about how do I be of service to you? How do I make somebody else feel important? Like when people say to me, well, I don't feel important and I don't feel like anybody cares about me and I don't feel like blah, blah, blah. I'll say, who have you shown those things to in the world lately? Who have you cared about? Who have you made feel important? Who have you been interested in? Right? Because that's where connection comes from. Loneliness is the opposite of connection, right? So all I have to do is connect to somebody else and I'm not lonely. I haven't been lonely. Oh my God, some days I wish I could be lonely. I haven't been lonely in decades because my whole life is based on how do I help somebody else? How do I make somebody else feel the way that I want to feel? And that cures loneliness like that.
In the,
But that's part of what's problem with your generation and below is that everything is about being self-absorbed and in this
you
moment,
said
right?
like being
And getting
important, gratification, and I think
mm-hmm,
that's like, you have to
and
be. It's like, in America I have to say, because I live in a different country, but in America it's like that, with girls, that, if you don't have a boyfriend at this age, everybody has one. Yeah, I should have one. I cannot. And I was talking to this girl recently, and she's really young, and she
mm-hmm,
lives in the States, and I said, you just got a broke up. Why didn't you get a boyfriend? Why didn't you be in a relationship right now? She said, everybody is in a relationship, so I should be in a relationship too, right? I should have a
mm,
boyfriend too. And this sounds so
yeah,
funny to me. And this
yes,
this is right. You just want gratification that I am in a relationship. Look, this is my boyfriend or this is my girlfriend. Oppositely, it's
right,
it's like that. And we
yeah,
we want the latest phone, latest this, latest that. Just not because we need it, because we want
no.
to prove that I have it, not
That
just
we're worth
need it.
something. That we're
Yes,
worth something.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, girls do fall under that purview when they're young. Like, if I don't have a boyfriend, then it means I'm not lovable or I'm not worth anything. And nothing could be further from the truth than that very thing. But they're so focused on what they want and what they want to get that they're not really thinking about what can I give. And that's part of being an adolescent and growing into an adult is learning how to shift your thinking from thinking about myself to thinking about others. And that's the difference. But the problem is a lot of kids make decisions based on that thinking about themselves, position. And that's where problems always show up.
With over 23 years of experience and coaching experience that you have,
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask this question, what legacy would you like to leave behind through your hope? Or do you hope to leave behind your work?
Yeah, I mean, I want people to know that no matter where they are in their life or what's happening in their life, they can make a different choice and it can change the trajectory of their life at any given moment. And that they have the power to do that. We all have the power to have the life that we want. It's just whether or not we exercise it, whether or not we're willing to to engage with it, whether or not we're willing to learn about it, whether or not we're willing to, jump on that train and say, I want to do this, right? Courage, like you said earlier, whether or not we have courage, right? And, being human is scary. It's a scary thing, being human, right? But it doesn't have to be. And we're all kind of in this together. And if you're not having the life that you want, you can. The only reason you're not
You
having
can
it
make a
is
life. You can
because
make a
you
life.
can
Yes,
you
because
can make whatever you want,
yeah.
you know? And so just be willing to get in the game. Part of being human is get in the game. Be the person that you believe you're meant to be, but nobody's going to bring that to you. Nobody's going to do it for you. You have to be the one that does it for yourself.
And I was talking to somebody, and I said to him that this thing, that can you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, "This is the person I want to be."
Mm,
If
I
yes,
can.
and if yes,
Yeah.
then you're really on the right path. But if you say no, here's a problem, and daily
Mhm.
you look at yourself in the mirror and say, would you like this person who's standing in front of the mirror? Would you?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then you're on the right. But if it's not, then yes, look into it. What's the problem? And you have
And
to
change it.
understand. Yes, change it. Because everything can be upgraded in this body. This is the greatest part of being human.
100%.
That it could be taken to the next level, or it could be taken down. And that's what I think
100%.
with humans. Why humans are the greatest species on the planet in the sense, because the heights human can reach nobody else can reach, and the lower human can go no other species can go also. It's the
I
really
agree.
opposite way.
I
Yes.
agree.
So
Yes, 100%. So yeah, I mean, it's about the choices we make. It really is. And if you don't like your life, just be willing to make different choices, and you can have a different life.
how do
It's
you
really that
measure
simple.
how do you measure your impact on your clients, on the people you have made? Do you like how do you understand it? Like, have you thought, like, it's like a data thing, how much have I really done in helping? Have you thought about it ever?
It's funny. Like, I know that all the clients that I've worked with, they come back years later and go, I can still hear you in my head, or I still think about that thing that you said to me, or whatever it is. And I run into them often. And so that's usually how I know what I'm doing. Like, my job is just to be a facilitator. My job is just to be a mirror. People show up for me and I just show them who they are. That's all it is. Like, I don't expect, me to be anything bigger than that, right? And if I impact somebody in that way, then I'm grateful for it. I'm super grateful for it. But it's usually about what comes back at me. What's the feedback I get back at me? Is it good? Is it positive? Or is it, you're a disappointment? I'm still this, I'm still that. I haven't had that yet. So actually, that's not true. I've had 2 or 3 people who got worse, who got worse as a result of coaching with me. But the hundreds of other ones, that I've worked with, I watched them grow, and I watched them blossom, and I watched them
Has it
have a new
changed you as well
experience.
as a person
Oh my
with
God. Every time I have a conversation with somebody, it changes me because I get to see things differently. And really, that's all we're trying to do with anybody is just change their perception of themselves, of their marriage, of their career path, of their life in some way. And so every time I'm having a conversation with somebody to try to do that, I get a new perception as well. And so, yeah, it changes me too.
So my last question, that before we wrap this up,
Hmm.
limiting beliefs that we have
Oh,
put
yeah.
in from the childhood, like
Hmm.
you've been conditioned to believe in something, and that's what for me is limiting belief, that is being bought from childhood, because that's the most hard to leave. That's the
Absolutely.
most hard to live when what you've been bought from the childhood, and you've been told, this is right, this is how you should live, this is how you should be, right? And
Hmm.
that's what I think it's sort of a manipulation, and parents do it without realizing how much it's going to impact the kid, until the kid becomes something that, because we never know how much impact are we creating to the kids by
No.
saying a single word when they are kids. We don't understand that, right? uh,
Hmm.
Parents don't understand that, because parents are not doing it towards their kids. They are doing it for their good, but they don't understand sometimes, and they
Of course.
do and so how do we overcome these limiting beliefs, which when we grow up, and this is especially in the case when we are in 20s and the 30s specifically. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
really older, but not too young as well. It's in 20s and 30s. When we
Mm-hmm.
have we have these conflicts and we marry or somebody. That's the time we have these conflicts of limiting belief that is stopping me to grow for
Totally.
my career, to grow in my marriage. All of that thing,
Mm-hmm.
become a parent. So I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
understand, how do we overcome our limiting beliefs?
Well, I think that every human being has limiting beliefs, right? And depending on how much pain, excuse me, those limiting beliefs cause will determine how fast somebody wants to get over them, right? And we get to choose what we want to believe whenever we get to that point. Sorry. Um, so limiting beliefs are really about learning how to catch what's working for us and what isn't. And if I'm telling myself a story that's not working anymore, right? Then I get to choose how to change it. But it usually takes a lot of pain to get to that place to be willing to change it. Because nobody is telling me anything that I'm not already telling myself. I pull people into my life that mirror what I already tell myself. So if I have people in my life who are telling me I'm not worth it, it's because I'm telling myself I'm not worth it, right?
That's
And
why
they're
I'm
just
taking that
they're
criticism
just
so
mirrors.
heavily. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
The whole
they're
world is
just
just a mirror.
mirroring
The whole world is just a
totally.
mirror, that,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
learn how to pay attention to the mirrors in your life and say, is this what I want? No, I don't want to be surrounded by people who tell me I can't do it or who telling me that I'm a dreamer. I don't want to be around people who tell me I'm not good enough. I
I
don't
want to
want
be
to be
around
around
people that
people.
how I want to feel, how I want to feel. If I want to feel nice, I want to be
Absolutely.
around nice people. I have to change my
Right.
friends group, because if they are negative about me, I can never grow in a negative place, right? So
100%.
so and
And that includes family too. It doesn't mean you have to throw people away, right? But it does mean that, you get to choose who you want in your life. And
how
if
much
what's
you
being
want
told to
to be
you,
affected from
mhm,
their words. It's okay to live
100%.
within a family, where you can not control them, but you can control that how much you want to get affected from their words,
Right.
right? And that is
Yeah.
something you have to control. Why you have to listen to them? You just have to
Yeah.
don't get affected. And that's the golden mini secret, to not get
Mhm.
affected, not be attached to these small things. And we become
Yes.
agitated and attached to small things that don't matter much, but we make it a big
Mhm.
issue, right? We make this a big
Yes.
issue, like this is the big fuss, that
Yes.
this is just happening with me. It's again all at the end about ego. It's all happening with me.
Yes.
Parents think in this whole big world, only my kid who goes out is going to face accident, right? He's going to get in
Yes.
trouble. That's the
Right.
whole
Yeah,
deal.
no, totally. And that's being a parent, we never know. Like if my dad
Yeah.
knew that what he said to me when I was 6 years old was going to change the way I thought about myself for the rest of my life, he never would have said it, right? But he said it the way he said it, and me as a child attached a meaning to it. I attached a meaning to it. I decided that this is what this means.
Important. This is infecting
Yes.
me.
And so I get to change what it means too. Right? I decided that when he said this, that it meant this about me. And that's not necessarily true. So if that's what I decided back then, I can undecide it when I realize that it's not working.
So thank you so much, Quincy, for being
Oh,
on.
thank you. It's been so much fun. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you so much for being on Zest to Live today. And we had a great conversation about so many things. But the one thing that I forgot is we didn't talk much about meditation. And that's what I think, because this is a Luvo original podcast. Meditation is such an important tool. Gratitude is
It
such
is.
an important tool. And
Mm-hmm.
within the Luvo app, you have guided meditation for beginners and for intermediate people who can grow and start their journey in spirituality, meditation, and gratitude, to understand
Yes.
how we can grow and come. And Luvo helps facilitate those growth for the people who are trying to improve their journey and trying to begin, because this is their guide. And we also
Mm-hmm.
have life coaches like you in that sense, like exactly you. Maybe
Uh-huh.
one day you will also be here to help
Uh-huh.
people. So we have these life coaches, you can talk to them and have free
Mm-hmm.
sessions with them online in the Luvo
Yep.
app. And watch them and understand and grow. So that is one of the free great features in Luo. And rather than I'm trying to promote it, you just have to try it out, I think. And it's a great app to experience and grow yourself, all the ways. And at the end of the day, remember what Gautama the Buddha said that comes to me always when I think about it is be your own light. Be your own
Mm-hmm.
light, be a light into yourself. That's what will take you to the next level. And you are
Yeah.
ultimately capable of changing to great. Never think that you cannot change. Never think you
Yeah.
cannot do. You are capable than your imaginations. Yes, that is the
Yes.
greatest secret. You are capable
Yes.
more than you can dream of. So that's
Mm-hmm.
the thing. And I remember
Yeah.
there was this celebrity, Quincy, who she was
Mm-hmm.
at a guru's place, and he was a really respected guru, okay, a spiritual guru. And when
Mm-hmm.
this actress met her and was leaving her like ashram or monastery, that guru said, "May your dreams never be fulfilled." And that girl was,
Yes.
what? And that girl was like, what? Why did you say that? Why should my dreams never get fulfilled? And said, let me complete. And the guru said,
Mm-hmm.
may it your dreams get you get things beyond your dreams, beyond your imagination, that's get fulfilled, because
Mm-hmm.
our dreams are and
Yes.
imaginations are so small. We are so much potential, and as we
Yep.
increase in our consciousness, Quincy, our capability of imagining things also increase. We can think big.
Yes, for sure. For sure. That's awesome.
So
That's a beautiful thought.
yeah, so thank you so much for being on the show today and giving your precious time and your insights and your journey to the listeners. Thank you so much.
Introducing Meditation with Luo for a calmer and happier you with our guided, unguided, and live sessions. Improve your mind-body connection through our live sessions for yoga, health eating, and meditation music. Always keep your health vitals in check by connecting your smartwatch. Download our free app and start living your best life.